This is Elisabeth Swain. I'm so excited to be here tonight with Chris Bartlett from the Proctor Academy. As you know, at College and Prep, we really love working with families to talk about who their children are at the core, and then doing our best to match them up with a school that's really going to help them thrive and be the right environment for them. And we've had a great long relationship with Proctor and are excited to share a little bit more about them with you tonight. Chris, if you could just introduce yourself a little bit more about Proctor, and then what drew you to that particular community.
Sure. Thanks, Elizabeth. I appreciate you guys hosting this interview and having Proctor included in your series. So I am the Director of Enrollment here at Proctor Academy. I have worked here for well over 20 years. I am a graduate of a class of 1986. Proctor is a co-ed boarding school located in Andover, New Hampshire, as you probably know. We have about 370 students. The school is known for a few things. We have a really robust experiential education sort of model where we put students out in the world. We're also a school that is very overtly supportive. So we have a really highly integrated learning skills program here, as well as a sort of breadth of outdoor athletic programs, including our own ski hill on campus, rock climbing, kayaking, as well as a whole host of traditional sports. I came to Proctor as a student because I was looking for something different. I had gone to an all-boys private day school outside Boston and was kind of looking to break out. And little did I know that I would end up in education as my professional field. And I was fortunate enough to start my career at another boarding school and come back to Proctor, like I said, about 20 years ago. So it's been a great place.
That's great. I know, obviously, parents can get online and see campus tours and learn about some of the, this sort of the 30,000 feet view of Proctor. But I'd love to know, are there any programs that you're particularly excited about as we go into this next year?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question, Elizabeth. I think, for Proctor, when we look at students and we look at families, what we're trying to do is figure out like, okay, how is this student really going to thrive? How are they really going to engage? So for us, it's never a really specific program per se, but I would emphasize for all of our students and families looking at Proctor that there are some unique opportunities here. And some of those opportunities include studying off campus. And so when we talk about studying off campus at Proctor, that means students spend an entire trimester away from our campus in Proctor's own experiential programs that we staff and hire and accredit. And one of the programs that we've added this winter is really interesting. We have a long history of running programs on sailing schooners. So we have a program called Ocean Classroom that we've run for 27 years. And that takes students from the Gulf of Maine to Puerto Rico. And they're typically studying like navigational math, maritime history, maritime literature, marine sciences. They stop in ports all along the eastern seaboard. This winter, we're adding a program that will take students from Charleston, South Carolina, all the way around to Mobile, Alabama. And the idea is that they will be studying basically triangle trade, the slave trade, and really digging into social justice in the United States. And so the intentionality of that program is pretty exciting, because I think it also speaks to the world that our kids live in right now and some of the issues that they're facing, but teaching them in a way that's really contextual. So to me, that's really exciting. I wish I could go on that particular trip. So yeah. Yeah,
that's amazing. You spoke about the contextual piece a little bit. Is that something that really follows through sort of the curriculum at large at Proctor?
Yeah, that's also a really good question. I think like a lot of schools, Proctor has been and continues to try to, sort of break free from a lot of the sort of traditional education that we've all been experiencing for the last century plus. And so, that's a process for schools and to sort of undergo. And it's something that Proctor's been doing for a long time, is really trying to contextualize education. So for example, we have a forestry program on campus. We have 3,000 acres. So why would we not offer students the opportunity to sort of use that as a classroom? And that's not something we started doing last week. It's something we've been doing for like 40 years. So then the question then becomes like, how do you continue to do that kind of work and provide students with those kinds of, real educational experiences that are relevant to them, that are not your traditional sort of, let's memorize the formula, let's regurgitate, let's have a test. So when I look at what we're doing, for example, in math, we have a academic dean and a new director of the math department, and they're blowing it up. They're saying, you know what, let's get rid of these algebra textbooks, let's get rid of the geometry textbooks. And that kind of work is exciting, because it really, kids are excited about math. And I can say that because my daughter is a freshman here, and she's in that program, and she's a kid who's not traditionally loved math. And she is saying, wow, this is real. My head hurts because I'm thinking so hard. It's frustrating because I can't just do what I did in the past, which is, memorize the formula and plug it in. I have to really think about the problems that I'm trying to solve. So I think that that's the work for so many schools, and work that Proctor is excited to continue to keep doing. So.
Great. Yeah, I love hearing that your daughter is there and part of the programs. It's such a fun part for me to get to visit school campuses and really see the culture, and how every, as many different kinds of families as there are different kinds of sort of familial cultures on school campuses. Can you talk a little bit about, not necessarily the classroom environment, but the sort of campus environment, and how that culture has grown?
Yeah, I love this. I love this question. And I love this space, because I think this is where schools are really unique and differentiated. And when I think about the culture here at Proctor, I think it's a culture that maybe like your daughter's school, it either resonates or speaks to you, or it doesn't.
Mhm.
And so Proctor's a school that's a first name school. Students call teachers by first name. We're not a school with a super preppy dress code. What we're really trying to do is put students and faculty in these kind of shoulder to shoulder relationships, because the relationships are really what sort of enable the education to happen. Learning is an emotional process, right? And it's not a transactional process. So what we're intentionally doing at Proctor is really trying to get students to let their guards down, so that we can get in with them and get in their heads and sort of build that culture. It takes a lot of trust, and it's a little bit risky sometimes, because it's pretty easy to want to keep teenagers like in a box, and teenagers don't want to be in a box. So you have some more blurred lines, I think, when you have a culture that's a little less formal. But I also think it's a culture that's pretty exciting and relevant for kids. So that's a little bit about our culture. The other pieces that I would say, just to kind of add on to that, would be the way we build our culture is kind of through small groups. And so dorms here average 12 students in them. So we have 20, 21, 22 dorms on campus. We have a town meeting typically 3 times a week, where students sit with their advisor. Like, everything we do is really set up to sort of amplify the student faculty relationships and kind of tear down the walls, if you will. So.
Right. Yeah. And that's such an important part. And I feel like I've said that is an important part, but it's true, of sort of creating the environment where kids can feel comfortable,
Right.
and their voice and their agency can become more clear, because they have the relationships that allow that with the adults in the room.
Yeah.
So, putting that into practice, what does the day look like when students leave the classroom?
Yeah. So after our academic day, our academic day typically runs from 8:15 in the morning till about 2:45, 3 o'clock. Following the academic day, all of our students are involved in some kind of an afternoon activity. And so at Proctor, we have quite a range or quite a breadth of opportunities. So for example, students could be on a traditional team sport. We have a football team, soccer team, field hockey, cross-country running, or they could be engaged in really awesome outdoor activities. So we have a mountain biking program with like 40 students in it, rock climbing, whitewater kayaking, as well as opportunities for dance, musical ensembles, community service. So there's really a range of things that students can choose from. And we just want them to be engaged, right? So part of being a boarding school student, a student at a place like this is trying something new, stepping outside your comfort zone. And so for a lot of kids, you know, they might not have played a team sport. They're going to jump in a kayak, and that can be terrifying, right? It's pretty uncomfortable when you flip over a kayak and it's 50 degrees.
Right.
But those are great moments, you know, for students. And so that's the afternoon program. Then our students have some dinner and free time. Extra help is a big part of the culture here. So teachers are providing office hours for extra help between kind of 6 and 7:30 at night. So a lot of students will sort of meet up with a teacher for a conference before study hall at 7:30. We run study hall 7:30 to 9:30, either in the dorms or in the library, or and then we have sort of in dorm time at 9:30. Students are typically hitting the hay about 10:30. So if we do our jobs right, the students are really tired at the end of the day.
Right.
That's kind of the magic of the formula for boarding school. So yeah.
Great. And what do the weekends look like?
Yeah, good question. So if the pandemic taught us anything, it's that weekend activities really, really matter. And so I think we, you know, Proctor and probably a lot of other boarding schools got really creative and innovative during the pandemic because everyone was kind of here because we couldn't leave. And so what's happened now, I've noticed this year, is we have way more students who they don't know that they can leave on the weekend. So they're just staying. And so this last weekend, there was, we had a paintball trip, there was a hiking trip, there was a dance in the student center. There's always shopping trips. There's always things happening on campus, like we had broom ball in our hockey rink. So there's a lot to do, and students can either choose to engage in lots of different activities, but at the same time, they also might just want to chill out, do their laundry, sleep in. So it's really, students have a lot of flexibility, but you're not bored. If you're bored at boarding school, you look in the mirror.
Right.
Right.
Right. So as you know, we've only got a few minutes left, but I do want to make sure that we're sort of thinking about the questions that parents ask when they call Proctor.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that you hear often that you think would be really wonderful for parents to know up front? Whether it's about Proctor, particularly about the boarding school experience overall.
Yeah, I do think that you know, good questions kind of drill in. They get sort of beyond facts and figures, and they start to really drill into what we were talking about before, which is kind of school culture, right? So, you know, if you look at this genre of schools, you know, independent school, boarding school, you're typically going to have some common factors like average class sizes, student teacher ratios. Some of those things are generally going to line up similarly. So the questions that I really appreciate are questions like, who doesn't do well at your school? Which students don't thrive? Which students really excel? What characteristics do you really value as a school? I think those questions really kind of get at culture and help families kind of understand, you know, what the community is all about. Because I do think, Elisabeth, like one of the things about boarding schools in particular is that they're not schools, they're actually communities. They should just be called boarding communities, because the school part, like the academic sort of that transactional side of the academics is like a very small percentage really of what these schools provide. So I think that families like looking to understand those pieces of the schools are going to get the best information. I think I had one other thing I wanted to say. Oh, the other thing too that I think families can sometimes learn a lot by asking is kind of what's on the horizon. So, you know, when you think about a school or ask a school, hey, what are you guys working on right now? Are there, you know, building projects, initiatives, shifts or changes happening? I think you can learn a lot about the culture of the school. So, you know, and I'll just give you an example. Like at Proctor, we're I set myself up for this question. Like right now, we're building an outdoor center. It's basically like an environmental science and forestry building with wet labs and greenhouses.
Wow.
And I think that's, you know, what I would tell you is that we're kind of doubling down on those kinds of science courses, right? Because of who we are, what our location is, and the incredible value we can provide. We teach a great physics class, but at the end of the day, you know, a lot of places offer a great physics program, but not everyone can offer 3,000 acres in the middle of New Hampshire and the kinds of outdoor experiences we can have. So for us, it makes all kinds of sense to have that kind of initiative, right, moving forward. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I love the question too about what are the characteristics of a student that really thrives at Proctor. So I'm going to, you know, I know that we're wrapping up, but I'd love to have you answer that question. I'm sure parents are interested.
Yeah. And it, you know, I'd say again, sort of, it's not just the students; it's also the parents. Like, what kind of families thrive or are the happiest in our community? I'd say that, you know, families that really appreciate Proctor a great deal are families who are willing to step outside the traditional kind of box. Yes, we're a, you know, college prep school, but families who are willing to say, yeah, it would be really neat if my child had a really unique experience and studied in a mountain classroom program, but also, you know, is a traditional learner and loves, you know, is going to take calculus. Like a family who's willing to kind of have some compromises in their students' experience. And when I say compromises, I don't mean compromising the quality. I mean like compromising the idea of the educational path being straightforward. Like it's not, Proctor's not it can be a straightforward school, but it's a really fun school for the journey, right? Where students can take a lot of risks. We have a metal shop, we have woodworking, we have welding. I mean, we have all kinds of really cool things, in addition to being a really strong place for kids to prepare for college. So I think a family who's willing to take risks or a student who's willing to take risks is going to be really happy here.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks, Elizabeth. Have a great night.
Thank you too.
All right.
Talk to you soon. Bye.